You want to know the exact moment I stopped thinking humans were just another soft species playing at war? It was not during the treaty negotiations. It was not when they first showed up with their ridiculous chemical rockets and primitive shield generators. No, no, no. It was when I watched one of their pilots, a guy named Marcus Vell, lose both his wings at 30,000 kelps above a moon neither side even wanted, and still, somehow, impossibly score a kill that should have been physically, mathematically, and rationally impossible. But let me back up. Let me tell you how we got there, because the setup makes the punchline so much better. My name is Korthal. I am, or rather was, a tactical observer for the Vecnir Dominion. We are not the biggest military force in this sector, but we were certainly not the smallest either. Our ships? Beautiful, sleek, efficient. Our pilots? Trained from hatching in simulation pods that cost more than some planets' annual budgets. We had technology that would make your average species weep with envy. Energy shields that could absorb a direct fusion blast. Weapon systems that could calculate firing solutions faster than most organics could blink. Hulls made from alloys that laughed at conventional explosives. And then the humans showed up. They came stumbling into the sector about 4 cycles ago, flying around in ships held together with what I swear looked like welded scrap metal and pure stubbornness. Their first diplomatic contact involved accidentally ramming one of our patrol frigates because, and I quote, the reverse thruster was being finicky. The entire Vecnir High Command nearly had synchronized cardiac arrests. You do not accidentally ram a Vecnir ship. You just do not. But they apologized. They paid for repairs. They even sent us a gift basket, which was weird because it contained fermented plant matter they called cheese, and half our delegation got violently ill from the smell alone. We thought they were idiots. Harmless, bumbling idiots who would either leave the sector or get themselves killed within a month. We were wrong. So wrong. The war started over mining rights to a debris field near the Coltex binary system. Some corporate interest on both sides got greedy, shots were fired, and suddenly we were in a shooting war with these bizarre primates who barely understood quantum physics but somehow built ships anyway. High Command was not worried. How could they be? We had superior technology, superior training, superior everything. The humans had luck and a shocking lack of self-preservation instincts. The first actual fleet engagement happened near Coltex 3, a barren rock with all the charm of a garbage compactor. I was stationed on the observation deck of the carrier Victorious Talon, monitoring combat data and feeding tactical information to our wing commanders. Standard procedure. Boring, really. I expected to watch our fighters sweep the humans aside like dust, file my report, and be home in time for the rest cycle. The human fleet arrived right on schedule. 26 ships. Small craft, mostly, fighters and bombers with a couple of support frigates hanging back. Our side had 43 fighters, all top-of-the-line Vexar-class interceptors, plus the carrier and 2 destroyer escorts. The math was not even close. We outnumbered them, outgunned them, and outclassed them in every measurable way. Wing Commander Seltris opened a channel to the human fleet. Professional courtesy, you understand, offering them a chance to surrender before we obliterated them. The response came back in that grating, choppy language they speak. The translator spat out words that made Seltris's head tendrils curl in confusion. Surrender? Buddy, we just got here. We haven't even started having fun yet. Fun. They called warfare fun. I remember laughing at that. Actually laughing. What kind of species treats combat like entertainment? The answer, I learned very quickly, was humans. The battle started simply enough. Our fighters launched in perfect formation, moving like schools of predatory fish through the black. Beautiful to watch, really. Each pilot knew their role, their position, their firing angles. Textbook execution. The humans? They scattered like frightened prey, breaking in every direction with no apparent coordination or strategy. They are panicking already, Seltris announced over the command channel. Maintain formation. Pick your targets. This will be over in minutes. Except it was not panic. It was chaos with purpose. A strategy so insane it looked like madness. The human fighters dove, climbed, rolled, and spun in patterns that made no tactical sense. They broke every rule of engagement we had ever written. They flew too close to each other. They made turns that should have torn their ships apart from G-forces. They used their maneuvering thrusters in ways the designers probably never intended. And they started scoring hits. Not many at first. One of our fighters took damage to its port shield emitter. Another reported a weapons malfunction after a near miss. Minor stuff. Irritating but not alarming. Then one of the human bombers, a ugly brick of a ship with more guns than sense, he somehow got behind 3 of our interceptors and lit them up with cannon fire before anyone realized what was happening. 3 Vexar-class fighters. Gone, just like that. Celtris stopped smiling. All wings. Adjust formation. Focus fire on Bomber Group Delta. Eliminate those heavy craft first. Good order. Solid tactics. Except the humans did not behave like they were supposed to. The bombers did not run. They did not try to escape. They turned around and flew straight at our incoming fighters, firing everything they had. Who does that? Who flies a bomber directly at interceptors? It was suicide, except it was not. Because while our fighters focused on the bombers, the human fighter craft, those small, nimble, stupid-looking things they called Raptor class, and swept in from angles we were not covering and started shredding our formation from the sides. It was like watching someone punch you in the face as a distraction while their friend steals your wallet. Crude, effective, infuriating. I started paying closer attention to individual human pilots, tracking their identification codes through our sensor network. Most of them flew with aggressive but predictable patterns, lots of risk-taking, minimal finesse. But one pilot kept showing up on my screens in ways that made my brain hurt. Fighter designation, Whiskey 7. Pilot name, Marcus Vell. This human, this Marcus Vell, flew like physics was more of a suggestion than a law. He pulled maneuvers that should have knocked him unconscious from the G-forces. He dodged missile locks by flying through debris fields at speeds that made my danger sense scream. He used his fighter's cannon in ways that seemed almost artistic. Not the most kills in the human wing, but definitely the most memorable. I flagged his fighter for monitoring and settled in to watch. Big mistake. Because watching Marcus Vell fly was like watching a disaster that somehow worked out in his favor every single time. He flew too fast, turned too hard, and took risks that would have gotten any sane pilot court-martialed. But he made it work. He made it look easy. And that was before everything went completely insane. The battle was about 15 minutes in when our destroyer escort, the relentless Fang, scored a direct hit on one of the human support frigates. The entire thing came apart in a ball of expanding plasma and debris. A good kill. Clean. It should have broken the humans' morale. It should have made them retreat. Instead, they got angry. I had never seen anger affect combat performance before. Anger makes you sloppy, makes you predictable, makes you dead. But human anger, it was something else entirely. The remaining human ships surged forward with an intensity that caught everyone off guard. They stopped playing defensive. They stopped being cautious. They came at us like we had just insulted their entire lineage and killed their favorite pets. Marcus Vell was right at the front of that charge. His Raptor-class fighter screamed across the battlefield at speeds that made our sensors struggle to track him. He hit one of our interceptors with a missile strike that punched straight through its shields. Before that pilot could even register what happened, Marcus had already moved on to his next target, guns blazing, flying through explosion debris like it was not even there. Someone kill that pilot, Celtris barked into the command channel. Wing 3, target Whiskey 7. Bring him down. 6 fighters peeled off to engage Marcus. 6 of our best pilots against 1 human. Should have been overkill. Should have been an easy kill. Marcus saw them coming. I watched his fighter juke left, dive down, then pull a corkscrew maneuver that made his fighter spin like a drill bit while still maintaining forward velocity. Two of our pilots fired missiles. Both missed. Not because their targeting was bad, but because Marcus had already moved to a position that did not exist when they launched. He was flying based on prediction, instinct, and probably sheer luck. Then he returned fire. His cannon stitched a line across one fighter's cockpit section, a clean kill. The pilot never even had time to eject. The other 5 pilots adjusted, trying to box him in, force him into a kill zone. Standard pack tactics. Works every time against even experienced pilots. Marcus flew straight up, just pointed his nose at empty space and burned his engines at full thrust. Our pilots followed, of course, because you do not let an enemy escape that easily. They chased him up, climbing away from the main battle. And that was when Marcus cut his engines, flipped his fighter end over end using maneuvering thrusters, and fired everything he had straight down at the pilots chasing him. The move was called a crazy Yvonne, apparently. Some reference to ancient human naval tactics. Completely insane. Completely brilliant. 2 more of our fighters died before they could react. The remaining 3 pilots scattered, trying to get out of his firing arc. Marcus flipped back around, reignited his main engines, and dove back toward the main battle like nothing had happened. 15 seconds. That entire engagement took 15 seconds. 3 kills, no damage to his ship. I was starting to understand why some species feared humans. Not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they were absolutely, completely, utterly unhinged when it came to combat. They did not fight to win. They fought to make you regret starting the fight in the first place. The battle continued. We were still winning, technically. Our numbers were still superior. Our ships were still better. But the humans were making us pay for every meter of space, every second of combat time. They fought like every ship was their last ship, like every shot was their last chance, like losing was not even an option they acknowledged. And then the moment happened. The moment that changed everything. Marcus was engaged with 2 of our interceptors near a dense cluster of debris from the destroyed frigate. Standard dogfight. High-speed chase through obstacles. Both sides trading shots, neither landing anything critical. I was monitoring the engagement, providing targeting data to our pilots, when suddenly 3 more of our fighters appeared from above the debris field. A perfect ambush. Marcus was boxed in. 5 fighters against 1. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. This was it. This was the kill. Our fighters opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, kinetic rounds, 2 missiles, everything converging on one point in space where Marcus's fighter was going to be in approximately half a second. No way to dodge. No way to survive. The math was absolute. The kill was guaranteed. Marcus did something I had never seen before and hope never to see again. He shut down his shields, just turned them off completely, diverted all that power to his engines, and pulled a turn so tight, so sharp, so violent that I swear I heard his ship's frame screaming through the vacuum. He dodged under the incoming fire by centimeters. The missiles flew past him, impacted each other, and detonated in a ball of fire that caught 2 of our own fighters in the blast radius. But the maneuver cost him dearly. The G-forces from that turn did something to his fighter's structure. I heard alarms blaring through the combat feed, saw warning indicators light up across his ship's systems. His wings, those swept-back aerodynamic surfaces humans insist on having even in vacuum combat, they cracked. Both of them. Structural failure from stress damage. They did not fall off cleanly. They hung there, connected by a few support beams and electrical conduits, flapping uselessly in the thrust wash from his engines. Any sane pilot would have retreated, would have called for evac, would have acknowledged the fight was over. His fighter was crippled. Flight control would be nearly impossible. Weapons targeting would be compromised. He was done. Elm. Marcus Vell looked at his dying fighter, at the 2 remaining enemy interceptors closing in for the kill, at the absolute impossibility of his situation. and apparently decided that physics could go straight to the nearest black hole. He kept flying. I want to be very clear about something. When I say Marcus kept flying, I do not mean he limped away to safety. I do not mean he tried to escape. I mean he pointed that broken, dying, completely unairworthy mess of a fighter at the two remaining interceptors and accelerated toward them like his ship was not currently held together by prayers and spite. The two Vecnir pilots must have thought he was attempting a suicide ram. Honestly, I thought the same thing. It would have been the logical conclusion to an illogical situation. Go out in a blaze of glory. Take enemies with you. Very dramatic, very human. But Marcus was not trying to ram anyone. He was hunting. His fighter wobbled through space, wings flapping like a wounded bird, throwing off his trajectory with every thrust correction. The flight computer must have been screaming errors at him. Manual control only. No automated stabilization. No assisted targeting. Just a human, a control stick, and a fighter that by all rights should not have been capable of combat anymore. The two interceptors split up, flanking him from both sides. Good tactics. Force him to choose which threat to address, then kill him from the blind side. Our pilots were professionals. They knew what they were doing. They maintained safe distance, locked weapons, and prepared to end this foolish human's last stand. Marcus did not choose a side. He spun his fighter, used his damaged wings as impromptu air brakes even though there was no air, and somehow, impossibly, he rotated his ship a full 360 degrees while maintaining forward momentum. The move was so ugly, so ungainly, so absolutely wrong that it actually worked. Both interceptors lost their firing solutions because his fighter was not where any sane prediction algorithm said it should be. Then Marcus opened fire. His cannons tracked across empty space, leading his targets by what looked like pure instinct. The shots went wide on the first burst. Second burst clipped one fighter's shield. The third burst. Fourth burst. Fifth. He kept firing, kept adjusting, kept compensating for the wobble and shake of his crippled ship. The sixth burst punched through the left interceptor's cockpit canopy. The pilot died instantly. The fighter tumbled away, systems failing, a clean kill scored by a ship that should not have been able to hit anything at all. One interceptor left. One very nervous, very confused Vecnir pilot who was suddenly realizing that maybe, just maybe, this human was not finished yet. I pulled up the comm feed from that pilot, listened to his breathing, fast and shallow, heard him muttering tactical assessments to himself, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. His name was Colrax, young pilot. Talented. He had 73 confirmed kills to his record. 73. Against every species in this sector. Against pirates, rebels, and rival militaries. 73 kills and 0 losses. Marcus Vell was about to make him number 74. Or die trying. Colrax came in fast, trying to use speed to compensate for Marcus's unpredictability. Smart move. Except Marcus was not flying predictably anymore. He was not flying by any rules at all. His fighter lurched, twisted, spun, and somehow kept its nose pointed in Colrax's general direction. The damaged wings created drag patterns that changed with every maneuver, making his trajectory impossible to calculate. They traded shots. Energy beams crossed the black. Kinetic rounds streaked between fighters. Colrax hit Marcus twice. Both shots glanced off what remained of his shield generators. Marcus missed 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. His damaged ship kept throwing off his aim. His targeting computer had to be barely functional, but he kept firing, kept adjusting, it kept learning. The 7th shot hit. Colrax's right engine took the hit, exploded in a flash of plasma, and suddenly his fighter was spinning out of control. He tried to correct, tried to stabilize, but the damage was too severe. His fighter tumbled into a piece of debris from the earlier frigate explosion. The impact was not gentle. Metal screamed. Shields failed. The fighter came apart in 3 distinct pieces. I saw Colrax's life signs flatline on my monitor. Kill number 74. Scored by a human with no wings, a dying ship, and apparently an overabundance of audacity. The entire command deck went silent. Everyone had been watching that engagement. Everyone had seen what should have been impossible. A crippled fighter killing 2 fully operational interceptors. A pilot flying manual controls against automated targeting systems and winning. A human doing things that broke every combat doctrine we had ever written. Wing Commander Seltris stood from his command chair, walked to the observation window, and stared out at the battle. His head tendrils were vibrating, which meant he was either very angry or very impressed. Possibly both. "Get me identification on that pilot," he said quietly. "I want to know who we are fighting." "Marcus Vell," I replied, pulling up the file our intelligence division had compiled. Age 29 standard cycles. Former atmospheric fighter pilot from a place called Earth, region designation North American sector. Transitioned to void combat 8 months ago. Current kill count. 11 confirmed. 11? Seltris turned to look at me. "He flies like someone with 100 kills. He learns fast, apparently. Seltris watched Marcus's crippled fighter limp away from the debris field, heading back toward the human formation. What kind of species sends pilots into combat with less than a cycle of training? The desperate kind, or the crazy kind? Possibly both. The battle was turning against us now. Not because of Marcus specifically, but because the humans had figured out how to counter our tactics. They stopped trying to fight us in formation, stopped trying to match our discipline and coordination. Instead, they fought like a pack of wild predators. Individual initiative, aggressive risk-taking, constant adaptation. Every time we adjusted our strategy, they adjusted faster. Every time we tried to predict their movements, they did something completely unexpected. We were not losing badly, but we were not winning easily either. And that was the problem. We were supposed to be superior. We were supposed to dominate. Instead, we were locked in a grinding, ugly brawl with a species that should not have been able to challenge us at all. Seltris made the call. All wings disengage. Reform at Rally Point Epsilon. We are withdrawing. "Sir?" one of the wing leaders questioned. "We still have numerical advantage. And I would like to keep some of those numbers alive for future engagements," Seltris replied sharply. "These humans are costing us more than this debris field is worth. We withdraw, reassess, and return with better tactics. Execute the order." Our fighters pulled back, burning hard for the carrier. The humans did not pursue. They did not have the numbers for a chase. They let us go, which was probably smart. Or maybe they were just as exhausted as we were. Hard to tell with humans. They seemed to have unlimited energy reserves when it came to violence. Marcus's fighter barely made it back to the human support ship. I watched on long-range sensors as he limped into their landing bay, wings dragging, engines sputtering, the whole ship looking like it should have disintegrated minutes ago. Ground crew swarmed the fighter the moment it touched down. I could only imagine what they were saying when they saw the damage. The battle was over. Technically a draw. Both sides withdrew. Both sides took losses. The debris field remained unclaimed. But everyone on that command deck knew the truth. We had not beaten the humans. We had survived them. There was a difference. The Vecnir High Command reviewed the battle recordings for 3 full cycles. Every angle, every engagement, every kill. They paid particular attention to Marcus Vell's impossible survival and subsequent victory. The analysts ran simulations, trying to replicate what he did, trying to understand how a crippled fighter could score kills against superior opponents. Every simulation ended the same way. The crippled fighter died. Marcus should have died. The math said he should have died. Physics said he should have died. Logic, reason, and common sense said he should have died. He did not die. He won. And that broke something fundamental in how we understood combat. 6 cycles after the battle, High Command made a decision. They opened negotiations with humanity. Not surrender, mind you, just talks. Discussions about mining rights, territorial boundaries, and possibly ending this stupid war before it cost both sides too much. I was assigned as part of the Vecnir delegation. Lucky me. I got to sit across a table from human diplomats and pretend I was not completely terrified of what their military might do if negotiations failed. The humans sent a mixed team: politicians, military advisors, and 3 active-duty pilots to provide technical consultation. One of those pilots was Marcus Vell. Of course it was. The universe has a sense of humor sometimes. He looked smaller than I expected. Humans always do in person. They are not physically imposing compared to most species. Average height, average build, skin that seems too soft to survive their own home world. Marcus had short brown hair, brown eyes, and a scar across his left cheek that looked relatively fresh. Probably from the battle. His flight suit had a patch on the shoulder showing a bird of prey clutching lightning bolts. The human military loved their symbolic imagery. The negotiations went poorly at first. Both sides wanted concessions the other would not give. Lots of posturing. Lots of threats disguised as diplomatic language. Standard procedure for ending wars. Boring and tedious. But then Celtrus, who was leading our delegation, did something unexpected. He asked Marcus directly, "How did you do it? How did you fly without wings and still score kills?" The entire room went quiet. Humans looked at each other. Our delegation looked at Celtrus like he had grown a second head. You do not ask tactical questions during peace negotiations. You do not give the enemy insight into why you are afraid of them. Marcus smiled. Not a cruel smile, just tired and maybe a little sad. I did not think about it. I just flew. When you are that damaged, that close to dying, you stop worrying about the correct way to do things. You just do what works. You adapt or you die. That is it. That is the secret. There is no secret. But the G-forces alone should have rendered you unconscious. Yeah, probably should have. Felt like my brain was trying to exit through my ears. But I stayed awake. Humans are stubborn that way. We are very good at not dying when we are supposed to. Celtrus tilted his head, studying Marcus carefully. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone arrogant. Someone proud of their victory. Someone who would boast about their skills. Marcus shook his head. I am not proud of killing your pilots. I am alive because I got lucky and they did not. That is not skill. That is just how war works. Somebody wins. Somebody loses. Somebody goes home. Somebody does not. I would rather nobody had to die for a debris field nobody even needs. That honesty, that simple, direct honesty. It changed the tone of the entire negotiation. The humans were not monsters. They were not unstoppable warriors from some nightmare dimension. They were just people. Scared, tired people trying to survive in a universe that kept throwing threats at them. Just like us. Just like everyone. The negotiations lasted another 6 cycles, but the tone was different, more productive, more willing to compromise. Both sides wanted peace more than they wanted pride. The treaty was signed on a neutral station. Mining rights were divided fairly. Territorial boundaries were established. Trade agreements were proposed. The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with mutual exhaustion and grudging respect. I spoke with Marcus one last time before the delegations departed. We stood at an observation window, watching ships from both fleets refuel at the station. Vecnir fighters next to human bombers. Former enemies sharing space peacefully. Strange how quickly things can change. Can I ask you something? I said. Sure. When you lost your wings and kept fighting, were you afraid? Marcus thought about that for a moment. Terrified. Every second. Thought I was going to die. Thought I was making my last flight. But fear does not stop humans. Fear just makes us focus. Makes us fight harder. Makes us do impossible things because the alternative is giving up, and we are really, really bad at giving up. Your species is insane." He laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, we get that a lot. But insanity kept us alive long enough to reach the stars. It kept us fighting when we should have quit. Keeps us going when everything says stop. It is not a great survival strategy, but it is ours. And it works. Most of the time. Sometimes. I watched his reflection in the window, saw the tiredness around his eyes, the weight he carried. This was not a warrior who loved battle. This was someone who fought because the alternative was worse. Someone who survived because stopping was not an option. Someone who represented everything terrifying and admirable about humanity in one exhausted package. "I am glad we are not enemies anymore," I said. "Me too. War is expensive. Peace is cheaper. And I would really like to not get shot at for a while. My ship is still in repairs. They had to basically rebuild the entire wing assembly. Turns out flying without wings is not recommended by any manufacturer ever. Shocking. Right?" He grinned. "Who would have thought?" We stood there in comfortable silence watching the ships. Two former enemies, now just two pilots who had survived something neither wanted to repeat. The war was over. The killing had stopped. Both sides would rebuild, recover, and hopefully remember this conflict as a lesson about the cost of pride and the value of peace. But I know what I will remember most. Not the battle tactics, not the strategic implications, not the diplomatic achievements. I will remember watching a human pilot lose both wings mid-battle and still score the kill. I will remember learning that humanity's greatest weapon is not their technology or their tactics. It is their absolute refusal to accept defeat, their willingness to fight with broken ships, broken bodies, and broken odds. Their stubborn, insane, beautiful determination to survive against anything the universe throws at them. We thought humans were soft. We thought they were weak. We thought wrong. And I am very, very glad we learned that lesson without losing everything in the process. Because if we had pushed them harder, if we had threatened their survival instead of just their pride, I think they would have kept fighting until nothing was left. It was not because they are cruel, not because they are evil, but because that is what humans do. They survive, they adapt, they overcome, and they never, ever give up. Marcus Vell lost both wings mid-battle and still scored the kill. That single moment taught me more about humanity than 1,000 diplomatic briefings ever could. They are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but they might be the most dangerous. Because they will fly broken ships into impossible fights and somehow find a way to win. And that is absolutely terrifying and absolutely magnificent, both at once. Always both. But the treaty held. The peace lasted. Humans and Vecnir eventually became trading partners, then allies, then friends. But I never forgot that battle. Never forgot watching the impossible become reality. Never forgot the day I learned that humans are not just another species in this galaxy. They are something else entirely. Something special. Something that should probably come with a warning label. Caution. Do not corner. We'll fight with broken wings and win anyway. Yeah, that about sums up humanity. And honestly, I would not want to face them in battle ever again. Once was more than enough for several lifetimes. Peace is better. Much better. Safer. Quieter. Less likely to result in watching someone fly a wingless fighter and somehow not die. I like peace. Peace is nice. Let us keep peace forever, please. For everyone's sanity. Especially mine.